You seem to be the only one running point for field operations today. Where's Andy?
I think you better ask him yourself.
Okay, put him on.
Hold on, I'll transfer you.
This is Andy.
What the hell is going on? Why aren't you point on this?
Mullins revoked my clearance. He knows I'm the one that gave Eric Carter the classified missile specs. Some might consider what I did an act of courage.
Courage.
Something you could have used a little bit more of.
I gotta go.
Thanks, everybody. Give it up one more time for Dan. Let's hear it.
Hi, everybody. Howdy.
Dan, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on 24 Legacy.
Thank you.
Talk to me about your character, Andy. As we saw, his clearance got revoked.
Yes, Andy's been benched by Keith Mullins. I call him Mellons because he's my roommate in Atlanta, that actor. And so to make him laugh on set, I call him Director Mellons. Andy Shalowitz is a computer analyst at CTU, an expert in the computer's subroutines and counterterrorism, things I know nothing about. So I was a huge fan of 24 to begin with. So when I got a call to come meet on a new 24, I was very excited, and especially when I stepped on that CTU set. You know, it's like millions of screens, very, very exciting stuff. A lot
As a
of
fan, do you like what? Is it like sort of going into an amusement park for someone? You know, like it's.
Yeah, for a geek, for a total geek, yes. Yeah, it was really, you know, it's a giant sound stage with tons of screens and a lot of very high-tech surveillance, you know, hacking, subroutine, all the stuff that happens in Homeland Security.
What is actually on the screens most of the time?
You know, we have a pretty brilliant computer graphics specialist named Olivier Benamou, who was on the original 24. And now this season, even more than back then, there are something like 200 mini screens which come together to form big screens. And we have sort of simulated infrared surveillance videos from every single airport in the country and in the world, bus stations, train stations, facial recognition software. You know, all of it is sort of replicas of actual software that exists that is designed to identify any potential threatening face, person, bag. And so we use a lot of, and a lot of it is footage that we shoot at actual train stations and airports so that they're up on the screen and to make the thing as authentic as possible.
Oh, it's crazy. I've been reading your blog posts on Entertainment Weekly where you sort of, not recap, but you blog about the behind the scenes of all of the episodes. And
Yes.
what's so interesting about that is how you talk about how the structuring, the sort of writing of the stories is very fluid. You know, there's reshoots and they're figuring things out. And if they do one thing, that affects another and they have to go back and rewrite and fix it. So it sounds like it's a sort of a much more interesting dynamic in terms of a television show.
It is. It's very complex. Obviously, as you know, the whole season takes place in one day. So every minute of action impacts the next minute. And if you make a change in one moment, it impacts the next moment. So there are often times where they'll write this, you know, and this is what they say about all drama. You know, you write everything 3 times. You write it on the page, you write it in the camera, which means when you're shooting it, it's sort of being written again because you're performing it and you're finding different moments, and then it gets rewritten again in the editing room. Sometimes the story has a moment in it that doesn't make sense, or could make more sense, or could be improved. And so throughout the season, we would do reshoot scenes from the 2nd episode, the 4th episode, the 5th episode. So just I was telling you earlier, there was a scene where I get benched, I get my clearance revoked. And originally, I walked out of Mullins' office and I went right back to my station. And then a few months later, we shot the scene where, as I reached my station, Rebecca Ingram, who is my old boss and my closest friend and ally, was calling me to see what happened and to reassure me. So sometimes moments got put in months later, and we worked them into the moment.
When did you guys finish shooting the show?
Just about 2 weeks ago.
Now, I have to ask, so you finished shooting it 2 weeks ago. I think in the last couple months, there's been a lot of sort of like intelligence community conversations happening in the world.
Yes.
What was it like to be shooting a show that obviously is loosely influenced by sort of stories that have happened over the past 15, 20 years, but at the same time is very much a sort of fantasy action show, just sort of using the technologies that maybe we would use to solve a crime like this. But to be shooting something that felt so, maybe for the first time, closely aligned to the conversations the country was having.
Yeah, I have to say that, you know, to be in the landscape of politics and in the world right now, and to be telling a story like this is both scary, it's relevant, and it's also an opportunity, I think, to portray characters who have an inner heroism, an inner courage that I think we all hope that we all have. So it's complicated. Obviously, in the real world, it's complicated. All of us can feel viscerally the fear and the, you know, terrorism is a real thing. We've seen it firsthand, and both in this country and abroad. But to live in the world of characters that have interpersonal relationships and who have inside of them the desire to do the right thing at any cost, and to play in a show that's a little heightened. Obviously, this is all one day, and it's really one messed up day. So the truth is, it is entertainment at the end of the day, and we are portraying something that could happen, but ultimately we're all playing characters that tap into a courage that I think is aspirational.
Now, most of your scenes that I've seen so far take place behind a computer desk, and because it's over the course of one day, I would imagine they all take place behind this computer desk. Do you get to get involved in any action?
You would think that a character like mine, the only action I'm going to see is Control, Alt, Delete, Enter, mouse pad. I do a lot of mouse acting, and a lot of intense looking.
Is that something that as an actor that like you get to finally do if you haven't done it before? Like, I'm logging in. Here we go. Okay, I've broken the security code.
Yes. Yes, and what you look like. I got very involved in trying to figure out, what does it look like when you're hacking? I mean, really, I don't hack. I don't know how to hack. What does it look like when someone's hacking? Yes. Do you react when you finally get in? Or if you're a pro and you do it so well and so often, you don't even think twice?
We're in.
We're in. On it. Got it. And on our show, you'll notice that oftentimes characters are asking me how long something will take. And you will see that it's a way of keeping the audience remembering, like, oh, he's working on that thing, and we're going to go to another story right now, and we're going to come back, and that thing might be done cooking by then. So a lot of times we'll be like, yeah, I'm going to download the schematics to you. How long is that going to take? Could be 10 minutes, could be longer, which means you will have a commercial before I finish. So I'm always dying to say, oh, yeah, I'll be done, you know, but by the end of the next commercial. But you can't say that. No, and also, we have, again, that computer graphics team is so great that oftentimes, most of the time actually, they will create the simulation of exactly what it is I'm talking about. So even though I'm looking at the computer keyboard, they're controlling from an iPad somewhere else the movement of what I am ostensibly doing.
Ostensibly, does it still not make any sense to you?
Makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I could type any key, and you'll see all these digits come across the screen, and then something pop up, and then find someone, and infrared, and really cool, and hacky hack, and I have no idea what any of it is. If it's not online shopping, I don't know what it is.
In 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes.
I need 5 minutes for the thingy thing to get to the blah, blah, blah. And then the cursor, the flashing thing, is going to do like a really cool thing. But to answer your question, I do.
What was it?
You asked if I ever get behind my desk.
There it is.
If I ever get out from behind my desk.
Kick a little ass.
Yes. First of all, I get benched in the last episode, so I get stuck in this sort of, in that room that I was walking into at the end there. I'm in this server room where it looks like I'm just counting lights. And then things get a little crazy, and I can't go into too much detail, but suffice to say, I do get to leave a little bit. And I do get involved in a story that I never in a million years imagined I'd be involved in.
Does Andy have fight training? Can he handle an altercation?
You know, it's a really good question, and you'll have to watch to find out. But know that I, as an actor, got tested in ways I never imagined, and Andy certainly did. I mean, this is a guy who pops an Ativan every morning with his coffee after he feeds his cat. So we're talking a guy who's not, you know, doesn't have the stomach for terrorism.
Dan, you have another show coming out this weekend, or it's like the 7th season, I think it is,
seventh
on
season.
TLC.
Yes.
So Who Do You Think You Are? It's produced by you and Lisa Kudrow.
That's right.
You guys have produced a number of projects together.
We do. Lisa Kudrow and I became partners 14 years ago. We produced The Comeback for HBO and Web Therapy
Clap
for Showtime.
for The Comeback, everybody.
Thank you. And Who Do You Think You Are, which started in the UK years ago. We were the producers that helped bring that to the US, and this is our 7th season on TLC Sunday night. And we have an amazing lineup. Courtney Cox and Liv Tyler and Noah Wiley and Smokey Robinson and John Stamos. Amazing stories. The premiere is Courtney Cox, which is an incredible story. We go back hundreds of years in her genealogy. And it's a story of royalty and murder, and it's amazing. You couldn't have written it.
What made you guys want to bring that show to the United States?
You know, it was Lisa. She was shooting years ago. I don't even remember what year it was, maybe 2008, when she was shooting a movie, P.S. I Love You, in Ireland. And when she had off days, she would binge watch this British show with celebrities that she didn't even know, but the stories were so compelling. And I remember getting a call from her saying, you have to watch the show. It's unbelievable. I just watched 4 of them in a row. And I don't know who these people are, but their stories are amazing. So we got a lot of episodes from the UK. We watched all of them, and we met with the creator. And about a year later, we were all involved in launching it on NBC for the first 3 seasons. And then we moved to TLC and did another 4 seasons. Emmy nominated, Emmy winning. We're very proud of it. Become a huge history buff in making it. Because there's, you know, when you're a kid and you're learning about history, it's a big snooze and all of it just feels so remote. But when you're talking about real people that lived back then and you're contextualizing it and you've got someone whose real family member that you're talking about, it totally changes history. So we're very excited to be continuing the show.
I've become a history buff in the last 6 months. I'll tell you why, because it helps.
Yes, it does.
You get to go, oh, this isn't that new. Everything's okay. Like, everything could be okay. This isn't that new for us right now.
That's right. Context is everything. And the other thing to always remember, and this show has always made me think about, is that we are currently living the history of tomorrow. So the photos we take and the letters we write and the tweets that we tweet will be, in fact, the documents that some producer who is doing some kind of cyber version of Who Do You Think You Are 100 years from now will be uncovering about the existence we're living right now. So it makes you a little bit more mindful about the way you walk through the world.
Whatever the TV show is we produce in 100 years that is just a chip that goes into your brain.
That's
I watched it and move on.
Exactly.
Talk to me about how you and Lisa started producing together. Was The Comeback your first project, or was it Web Therapy?
No, Comeback came first. Our first project was a TV movie we did, and then right after that we did a bunch of pilots. We had a deal at Warner Brothers, right? She was still doing Friends. And my husband, Don Roos, is a screenwriter and a film director, and he was directing a movie called The Opposite of Sex that she starred in. And so she and I met on the set of that movie. And a couple of years later, she was in a movie that I made. And then about a year after that, she asked if we could partner up in a TV company. And nobody supported us. Like, our agents were like, you don't need to hitch your wagon to a sitcom actress. And her agents were like, do not do this. This is a big mistake.
Wait, your agents called her a sitcom actress?
At the time, she was on a sitcom.
That's the craziest thing to me, because
It's the craziest thing.
Whether you like Friends or not, Lisa Kudrow, is one of the funniest people in the world.
Yes, and very talented, and an amazing actress and a writer in her own right, and it was a thrill for the two of us to partner up, both of us as actors and writers and producers, and we've been doing it for 14 years, and The Comeback was among the first things we did about a year after we started, and then we did, Web Therapy and Who Do You Think You Are, and then The Comeback again.
Now, talk to me about what happened with The Comeback again, because I loved it. I was so happy to see that character come back. It's so dark. It's so funny. It is exactly the type of humor that I like, which is alienating.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time, and we were, without knowing it. I mean, the first Comeback was in 2005, before there were any Housewives, when the only reality television was really Survivor and Amazing Race and Real World. And so the idea of following this woman around in her life and her obsession with sort of being photographed seemed kind of odd and subversive in a weird way, and like a glimpse into something that was too difficult to look at. And the truth is, we've now 9 years later, we've seen many people with the level of narcissism and self-interest to want to have cameras following them around. So the perspective that we had now with Valerie Cherish 9 years later, when HBO was open to doing a whole other season, was exciting because it was like, all right, now Valerie feels like she was on the forefront of something, which is great for her. And now what does Valerie want to do? Now she steps up her game.
Now, is there any possibility for another season of The Comeback, or do you guys feel like you left it exactly where you want to leave it?
Always. There's always the possibility. The conversations about where Valerie is now, or what she would be like if she did that, or what would she be like if she did that.
Where is Valerie now, in your opinion?
Well, I know where she is literally, but no. I mean, Valerie, I think, is capitalizing on her Emmy win. And
but last time we saw her, she didn't stick around to actually collect the award. Right?
Someone a few days later, somebody went and got that award. Are you kidding? That award is front and center on her mantle.
So in your guys' mind, the end of the Comeback, which was a much more, I think, personal relationship oriented, yes. And sort of her lesson learned was that personal relationships are more important. You don't think that that's a change that will sort of occur or she'll take to heart for the rest of her life? It was just a momentary...
No, I think she's a changed woman, but to realize the importance of the human relationship is not to discount the accomplishments over here on the mantle.
Possibilities that
and the gold and the glisten and the draw of a camera and a role and a possibility to be in the limelight again. I think that it would be really interesting now, personally. I mean, again, we talk about this, and there's no concrete plan right this minute until we have a great story that we want to tell. But I think it would be really interesting to explore, how does now the changed Valerie continue to pursue her dreams, given what she's experienced and what she's learned? It's always evolving.
I would like to see the Valerie what I'd imagine would happen is she gets that award, and then maybe she gets a little bit of success, but it's not really enough, and she still ends up kind of clawing her way through something. But what would the Valerie Cherish look like if she was wildly successful and had her pickings into any part that she wanted to do? Would she end up just picking the wrong parts and misunderstanding them? Because even when she gets a good proposition and a good role, she does everything against her best interests, It's a very good question, and to me, it's just fun to speculate. What would she be like, in Downton Abbey? What would she be like in a play in the West End in London? What would she be like in a documentary? What would she be like? It's interesting to see how her ego and what her talents and what she's learned draws her to, and what are the pitfalls. There are always pitfalls. All of us, we grow, we get another role. All of us as actors, sometimes we wind up on a hit, sometimes we wind up on something that doesn't succeed, and we keep trying. And that aspect of the artist's life doesn't end even if you have a profound experience. I think that is interesting. One of my favorite things, and we'll get off The Comeback in just a second, but one of my favorite things about the second season was exploring the things that an actor doesn't necessarily, the agency that an actor is allowed to have on the set of a show or a movie. And I think, coming from a female perspective in that show is more powerful, but the agency of any actor on a set is so fascinating because you don't want to take up time, you don't want to get in anyone's way, but you have questions and you're concerned about how you're going to look at the end of the day, which is very important. Can you talk about sort of developing that story at the time?
You mean when Valerie was in the miniseries and how she? Yeah, I mean, I think it was important that one of the things that was really important for Michael and for Lisa, at the end of the day, is that whether she was aware of it or not, she's actually quite a deep and profound actress, and it was that moment. There's a moment where they wind up seeing the dailies of her work, and they realize how unbelievably talented she is, and how interesting it is how sometimes the actor gets in their own way by being concerned about what we think is important and how much light we have on us and whether we look good or not, or whether we think we hit that moment. There are many other people involved in telling a story, and sometimes inadvertently, when we get out of our own way, we do the best work. And I think it was interesting to see Valerie not realize, even herself, how affecting she was in the role she was in when her mind was on other things. And I think it's a lesson that every actor can take. The things I get preoccupied with, you can't even imagine.
Have you gotten preoccupied with that's gotten in your way?
You know, whether the shirt is too baggy, whether it matched, whether or not I'm really, you know, whether
this doesn't look like a real hack.
This doesn't look like a hack. I don't think I'd be sitting if I just came in from they're like, no one cares. Sit down, say the lines, the story tells, you know, the story is going to be told, and the audience is with us. And sometimes we get really caught up in minutia, us actors, and we can't help it. Because we're damaged.
Absolutely, because you're worried about how something's going to come across, and if you don't believe in it, you don't think that somebody else is going to be able to believe in it, even though it might just be the most basic form of, you know, he sips coffee.
That's right.
Down. You're like, why is he sipping this coffee? How am I supposed to do it?
Yes, when things get in your head, you really can get in the way of the work. And one of the best things that can happen on a set is that everything's taken care of. You know that you look like the character, you know you're being well lit, you trust that the words tell the story, you trust that the water's going to be in the glass when you sip it, you trust all that, and so you can just walk in and experience it. But when a thought pops into your head, like, oh, I forgot to put on my Spanx, which means I am popping out of this shirt in the middle of the scene, and the camera's right there. Oh, God, this is going to look so bad because the camera's right there, so it's getting me on an oh, damn. You do not want to be thinking about that in the middle of a scene, and we try not to. But, you know, these are very tricky. It's a very interesting art form to be an actor and to be filmed and to do multiple takes. There's something very unnatural about it, and makes you self-conscious. And the goal, of course, always is to not be self-conscious.
Do you prefer being on camera or producing, writing off camera?
You know, I love all of it. I love the process of being creative and collaborating. I love collaborating with other people, so producing is a great way to get actors and writers and directors together and tell a story. And I juggle a lot. Normally I juggle a lot. There is something very liberating for me to just do the one thing that I always wanted to do first, which was act. So when I'm playing a role, when I'm acting, there is something very freeing about letting go of so many areas of control that I obsess over. So when I'm producing and when I'm writing, you know, you're in the driver's seat. But when you're an actor, you really do have to trust, like we were saying before. And there's something very freeing about that. So that is sort of my first love, and I've been enjoying doing that.
Let's get some questions from the audience right here. Hey.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
So you were on one of my favorite shows of all time, which is Scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm still not over James.
Who is?
I'm still pissed at Shonda for that. But I was just wondering, do you still follow the show? And if you do, what do you think of what's going on with Cyrus?
Yes, I still follow the show. I've had some dips throughout. It was hard right after, you know, my demise. I had to sort of step away and not look at it for a while because it was very painful. But I'm certainly caught up this season. It's very exciting. And, you know, who could be surprised by anything Cyrus does? The fact that he's capable of murder, really? I mean, you know, the most romantic thing he ever did for James was to call off a hit. So, you know, we're talking about someone who's capable of almost anything. But Jeff is such an amazing actor, and the way in which they keep ramping up the stakes for him and what he's willing to do to ultimately be the all-powerful is fascinating. I think it's really fun this season.
Next question.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to know how was it filming this show compared to Scandal?
Wow. Well, do you mean in terms of how it felt to be in this show as opposed to that one, or how physically?
Yeah, like physically how it was filming both shows.
Scandal is, you know, they both take place in Washington, and they both sort of have a heightened reality about politics. This show is darker, faster. We shot in Atlanta. So I literally physically had to move to a different state to shoot it. It felt very different. Scandal had a warmth about it. I was playing a dad. I had a baby. I had a husband. 90% of my scenes were in our bedroom. It was a warmer experience to playing a computer analyst in a giant tech-crazed surveillance office in a show that moves as fast as this one does with such a big cast. So it really did feel like apples and oranges, you know? I loved doing both of them. I was very close to both casts, but they feel different. The shows feel different. And on 24, I have to wear the same outfit the entire season. I mean, every second of every episode, I'm in the same shirt and the same pants. Not so, I mean, Scandal, I got to make a lot of wardrobe changes. I'd be in 3 scenes on Scandal and change 9 times. I mean, that was a dream for a gay guy who likes fashion. I mean, I was like, give me a wardrobe change. So there was that difference too, on the superficial level.
Here you're not really, I mean, it's not the greatest outfit for every day.
No, it's, you know, I look maybe like a valet at a low budge country club. But that character,
Definitely low budge.
Low budge, and the character is not about that. You're not tuning into 24 Legacy to see what we're wearing. I mean, it is. Whereas there's something about Scandal that's kind of glossy and glamorous, and Olivia Pope has a whole fashion line. If she doesn't, she should, you know. No, 24 Legacy is really about the pace of storytelling and the stakes that could not be higher, and that sort of edge of your seat storytelling. You don't have time to look at the clothes, you know, you're trying to save the world.
One more question. Who do we have here? Right here.
Oh, Dan, how you doing?
Hey.
Good. Thank you for being here. So, out of all the roles that you played in your career, which one was the most difficult that you learned from in your career, and would you consider doing it again or not?
I'll put my mic. You think about it. I'm gonna take off.
All right, bye-bye. I'll see you later. That's a really tough question. I mean, I think the one that changed me the most was James on Scandal. It was the biggest opportunity, but it was a character pretty close to in some ways, who I really am. So it wasn't like a stretch in that way, but it was a stretch emotionally. It was life-changing to play that part. So I certainly wouldn't want to play it again because I know what happens to him, and I wouldn't want to get killed again. That was the most difficult thing I ever experienced, was the death episode, was the episode where I was killed. I would never want to repeat that. Of course, I'm on a show where I could be killed at any moment, so I don't know what my problem is. But
it's that character that you don't want to experience getting killed.
I think
the
so.
Character on Scandal.
I think the character on Scandal I was very close to. I was very close to the, you know, the cast, and I was also, as a character, I was I was really broadsided, and it was challenging.
What was it like when you wrapped? When you finished shoot? Was the death scene your last scene that you shot?
Yep.
And what was that like?
It was. I will never forget it. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and it started raining, and I was lying in the street, and Scott Foley was sitting with me, and there was all this. We had to do take after take of gurgling blood, and saying, you know, it's very emotional. I can't saying the name of my daughter is the last word out of my mouth, which I can imagine might be what happens in real life because I'm very close with my own daughter. I mean, it was emotional, and everybody was a wreck. And but the next morning, and then there was a big cake. They brought out a big cake. I mean, at 1 o'clock in the morning with blood all over your body, the last thing you want to do is look at or blow out candles or eat a cake. But the next morning, I had to be on a morning talk show. I don't remember what I was promoting. Maybe Scandal, maybe something else. And there was so much blood still in my fingernails. I had to sit like this because I didn't want to give anything away. For 5 weeks, I couldn't really talk about what was about to air. So that was intense. That was intense.
Dan, I gotta let you go. 24 Legacy. What night can people tune in?
Monday nights. 8 o'clock on Fox. Watch it live with us. We are live tweeting all the time. But you can also catch up on Hulu and Fox Now anytime.
That's how I've been watching it. Dan Bucatinsky, everybody. Dan, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dan.